What's going on? What's going on? What is going on? This is your boy Drew, aka Uncle Drew, aka Coach Drewski, checking in for the February monthly wrap up and talk about what I've been reading, what I finished, what I've been reading, what I'm looking forward to reading moving forward. And without further ado, we're going to take some time and get right into it because we have no time to waste. And when I left you guys last month, I'm pretty sure I had started Razor Blade Tears by S.A. Cosby. Turned out to be a really good book. Really liked it, really enjoyed the writing. It was a mix of emotions on helping two fathers solve the murder of their sons while also figuring out a lot about themselves along the way. And I really like it, really liked it. It really took me by surprise on the journey that they went through coming to grips with their son's sexuality, as well as pulling an unlikely pair of two people together in for a common cause. And they ended up working as a fantastic duo, being able to work off the yings and the yangs of one another, being very different as far as men and fathers go. But at the end of the day, they were able to pull together, go on go on an adventure to solve a mystery, while finding out a lot of good stuff along the way. S.A. Cosby does a lot of good things in his writing. Very witty, very descriptive. I can feel the heat. I can feel the tense situations. I can feel everything that's going on in the environment, the discussions, the tension between characters, uh, the people putting up with no bullshit between the characters. And it just made me feel really involved in the story, I would say. And so I gave this book 4 out of 5 stars. I thought it moved very well. I kept catching myself going, hey, one more chapter. All right, one more chapter. And they would always kind of leave you on a cliffhanger to the point where you had to be like, all right, I need to know what happens next. And that's a sign of a good book, a good story, a good movie, a good show. And for me, it's even harder to do that with books because it's reading, like, you know what I mean? So in order to keep the reader wanting to read more or to continue on, you have to do a very good job of setting that up, leaving some cliffhangers, and also being able to feed the reader while they're going through everything as well. So shout out to S.A. Cosby. Looking forward to reading another book here soon. I think the next one that just came available for me is Blacktop Wasteland. I think that's the next one for me. So not sure when exactly I'll get to it. I picked the book up from the library, but I have a couple other reads that I need to settle down on. And so we're going to try to make sure we get that done in the next month or two. And if we don't get around to it, we don't. But I wanted to read more of his work because I like the confidence in which he writes with. And then also, I really like his character. So I hope there are even more good, quality, funny, driven characters in his work, that keeps me coming back. And I talked about this briefly before. One book that I really set out to read was with the passing of Ricky Henderson in the month of December was the book Ricky, written by Howard Bryant. I got that book finished. I think I want to say end of January, so I wrapped it up in February. But for those that don't know, gave that book 5 stars. Ricky Henderson was way before his time. If you're a baseball fan, if you're a sports fan, you're really, really gonna like and enjoy the book. Um, Ricky as a person sounds like a fantastic person to want to know or to be around, even though he's really tight fisted when it comes to money. But he was worth every dollar that you would spend when you came to the park because you knew he was going to play all out. Had a tremendous career, a Hall of Fame career, on the bases and in the batter's box. And he gave people what they wanted, and that was excitement in a game of baseball that pretty much, I'm not going to say it's been watered down, but baseball, which is supposed to be the pastime game that you respect and not a lot of flair and kind of showmanship in there. Ricky brought that, and now you see a lot more players these days, operating on a level like that with bat flips, with a little bit of flamboyancy, with talking a little bit more, things like that that used to be shunned by the older generation in baseball. Gave that one 5 stars. Check it out if you can. And I'm very happy to get to this point where I've gone back and I've looked at a couple of my DNFs, my do not finish or did not finish. And I'm usually a person with my kind of just the way I'm built and I'm wired. I cannot, not cannot, there has to be a very good reason for me to not finish a book, or it has to be really, really bad, or just not my cup of tea. So I don't have very many DNFs. But last year I was getting sidetracked a little bit. I tried to do this thing where I read multiple books, two, three, maybe sometimes even 4 books at a time. And through that, I kind of fell off on a couple reads, and I'm disappointed in myself, and I laugh too. I totally laugh because I fell off on a couple books, but I was like 80, 90% of the way through these books before I kind of just fell off on them. So I was technically almost done with them. If I would have stuck with them for a couple more hours, I could have finished them in 2024. But no worries, no fret. We wanted this year, one of the goals this year was for me to go back and finish a couple of my DNFs and be able to talk about them. So, one little caveat for that is that instead of me being able to count those as last year books, they're going to count as books that I finished this year. So we're already, I think we're on our 6th or 7th book or read of this year, and my goal is 26. So we are operating at a high level by just doing something simple and adding some DNFs on that list. Some DNFs that I had in that pile was Let's Get Naked by Helen GW, a good friend of mine who published her first book. Congratulations to her. Very good, very introspective read, very vulnerable book written by her. So thank you for writing that, Helen. Appreciate you. Can't wait to interview you and talk about the book in the near future. Gave that book 4 out of 5 stars. It talks about vulnerability. It talks about marriage. It talks about self-reflection. It talks about having some self-awareness in yourself, to know how you are and how you respond to situations and people and occurrences. And I just really like the things that you did in there. Really nice, quick read, short chapters. Helen, you do a great job of asking your readers questions, and so they need to reflect on their own, which I greatly appreciate. But thank you for just putting a good body of work together. If you guys see it, that's Let's Get Naked. Go on Kindle, go on Amazon, buy it, purchase it, check it out, see what you think about it, and hopefully you'll like it. And once again, you're just supporting a great author to do more work in the future. The second DNF in that pile was a book that I really, really like. It's called Water the Bamboo by Greg Bell. And this book, we had Greg Bell come talk to us when I was in college at the University of Oregon. And Greg Bell talked about watering the bamboo, and I'll just give you guys a short oversight and overview of everything. Bamboo is one of the strongest, let me not lie, is it a plant? I don't know. I'll have to get back to you. Bamboo is one of the strongest materials grown. But the thing that people don't know or unaware of is that it takes so long for bamboo to break the surface and grow. You can plant bamboo, you can water it, you water it for a year, 2 years, 3 years. Let me not lie. I don't know if it's up to 3 years. But you water it, you nurture it, you take care of it for so long. And for the longest time, you don't see any progress, you don't see any growth or very little growth. And in that 3rd or 4th or 5th year, you see an exponential amount of growth with bamboo. And it's strong, it's sturdy, it's used for a lot of great things. This book is a book that's based on, it's a leadership book, but it talks and it focuses on entrepreneurs or people that are afraid or people that want to go ahead and go out and get things that are within their grasp, but they might be a little bit afraid. They might be a little bit hesitant. They might second guess themselves, or they might be unsure. This book is a leadership book. It's going to cause you to, if you're working on a business or you're about to put that other foot forward and pursue it, This book will help you do that. It's a really quick read. I want to say it's no more than 120 something or 30 something pages, but it's a really good digestible book to take in. You can take small little parts of it and apply them to your life, or you can just take 1 or 2 days and read this whole book really quickly, highlight, take some things from it, apply it to your life, and you're going to see a lot of growth, or you're just going to see some changes in your life relatively soon if you're able to apply those things to your life and kind of get over that fear of failure or messing up and just getting out there and making mistakes or just putting some things together. And so that's Water the Bamboo by Greg Bell. I gave it 4 stars, and I don't go back and read books too often, but there was something that made me go back and read this book. I don't know if it's for the season of life that I'm in and working towards, or if it was just trying to go see if a lot of those things are still applicable to what I'm working on and doing right now. So, once again, that's Water the Bamboo by Greg Bell. And now we can get back into the books that I'm currently reading and working on right now. So, I have a book club. Uncle Drew has a book club. If you don't know about it, ask me about it. Hop on Patreon and find it. Drew J. Davis, Uncle Drew's Book Club. 1 book a month, 12 books in a year. Read at your not your own pace. Read the book by the time it's the end of the month, the last Monday of the month. Okay. So I joined another book club because I know how difficult it is to start and to continue with the momentum of having a book club. And I wish I could tell you the person. His name is Justin Hill, Justin or Justice Hill. But I met I met a lot of readers through Threads, but I met Mr. Hill through Threads because I bump into so many readers and so many book lovers. And when he said he was starting up a book club, I put my name in the hat. They've been emailing newsletters and on top of everything about the book we're reading right now, the book we're going to read next month. So it's good to be a part of a community like that. And like I said, I know how hard it is. So I wanted to go ahead and be a part of it. Somebody starting something new. One hard thing is to always get people to follow you or join in until they see the success or the growth or who else is in it. And honestly, for having a black man that is working on a book club and bringing people together and pushing the discussion and the meetings, I'm all for it. So now the book that we're reading with him is called The Mountain Is You by Brianna, and I'm not sure if it's West or Wiest, Wiest. The Mountain Is You. And they talk a lot about self-sabotage. So far, we're only about 2 chapters in. They talk a lot about self-sabotage. They talk a lot about imposter syndrome, and pretty much is trying to let the reader know that the thing that you're trying to get over isn't the obstacles, it isn't the job, it isn't the promotion, whatever it might be. The mountain is you. You're in your way, or you're standing in the way. You're stopping yourself. You're slowing yourself down. You're making that climb to the top so much harder based upon, your own self-awareness of yourself. And like I said, we're only 2 chapters in. We are meeting bi-weekly and going to wrap up the book this month and move on to the next book next month. But I'm enjoying this read so far. There's sometimes some imposter syndrome or just some unworthy tendencies that pop into my head and mind when I'm working towards things or things that I'm working on as an entrepreneur. And so I think this book is really good for the time that I'm in to push through some mental blocks like I am right now. Doing things like getting on here, talking about books, galvanizing people to continue to read and to talk about the books they're reading and to challenge other people to read. But more so for me, getting on camera, taking the time to pick up this microphone, talk to the people out there that love books, and continue to keep doing that consistently over time with no matter what it brings, because I like talking about books. I like pointing people in the right direction of recommendations or things that they would enjoy reading. And honestly, yeah, I can pretty much just say those 2 things are why I really enjoy books. Our black and brown boys are reading at or below a 5th grade level. And I tell this to a lot of people, that is not cool with me. So, in order to be the change, we need those younger people to see us reading, to see us talking about books, to see us getting happy. It's going to take those young people to see us get happy about reading, to carry a book, to discuss books, to have educated conversations in and around books. That's going to help push that agenda of educating yourself and picking up books that you actually enjoy reading and not just stuff that you were forced to read as a kid or in school. So, reading is cool. Pick up a book, share it with others, challenge others. You know how I do. You guys know I'm always going to talk about stuff like that. Keep doing that no matter what, because it's very, very important. So that book is The Mountain Is You by Brianna West, and hopefully we'll finish that by the end of the month. And for Women's Month, I always try to pick up either a book with characters that are women, or pick up an author, a black author or a woman author, and being able to read about her story or her characters. And for Women's Month in March, there's no other than Toni Morrison to dive into. So Toni Morrison is a fantastic author, fantastic poet, and I always say we, why don't I just say me? I'm reading the book Tar Baby, and it has been a long while since I picked up a work from Toni Morrison. I think the last book I remember reading of hers is The Bluest Eye, and it was a at least 10 years ago, if not more. So I'm happy to dive into Tar Baby. The writing is so descriptive. I'm probably about 80 or 90 pages in. So if you want to read Tar Baby with me, and join Uncle Drew's Book Club on Patreon. We will be meeting and discussing the book on Monday, March 31st. And so you'll be able to be a part of that conversation. I know I talked to some very smart people. I know you guys are fast readers, so you can get it done. But that's what we are on right now. Toni Morrison's a great author, said some very prolific things. I remember even when she was talking in this interview, and the white man or the white person that was interviewing her asked her about why she doesn't write about white characters or have white characters as her main characters. And her response was, "You don't understand how incredibly racist that is, what you just said. You expect me as a black author to write about and have white characters when there are plenty people out here talking about white characters and having them as their protagonist or their heroine in their story. But we don't have enough black and brown writers, and we don't have enough black and brown characters that are being highlighted in these books." Now, I don't know if she said all that, but that is me jumping on the back end of what she said and saying, how dare you ask a black author why they don't write about white characters? You don't ask the white authors why they don't write about black characters. And so it's only right for me for Women's Month to read another story from Miss Toni Morrison, and hopefully I will get some great stuff out of it. The writing is already so detailed. Sometimes I get very lost in the writing, because there's sometimes I'm just reading, and before you know it, I look back at what I read, and I'm like, what did she say? What is she talking about? What character are we even discussing? What's going on right here? So sometimes the writing is a little bit complex, and I'm not afraid to admit that. There's times where I'm like, I don't know what the heck's going on. I'm kind of lost. Let me get on Cliff Notes after this chapter and get caught up. But for the most part, it is a very advantageous book to read to add to your arsenal of great literature work, especially with them out here banning books. And finally, the last book that I'm working on, and we're reading it on Kindle, is When Crack Was King by Donovan X. Ramsey. Now, I've seen this book all over threads, Instagrams, popping up for people's books that they've been reading. And I think this book is very interesting. It has a nice cover. Some covers of it are orange, some are black. Just it has When Crack Was King on there. And since I saw this book, and since I saw people writing and talking about this book, I definitely wanted to add it into my arsenal of books that I read at some point over the last couple years. And although I feel like it's gonna be a good book. I'm 4 or 5 chapters in. One thing, I avoided it during Black History Month because I didn't necessarily want to read about anything bad for Black History Month, if that makes sense. I didn't want to sit here and read about the crack epidemic and the times that it hurt the black community and what it did. But Granted, after we've gotten past Black History Month and the book became available for me through the library and through Libby, I was like, oh, I gotta read this now. So I have 2 weeks to read it. So I need to get on my horse because it's roughly about 300, 400 pages. But I really like it because so far the author is talking to a couple different people in different states about what the or their story pretty much, but also what the crack epidemic has done to their community or people around them or their lives in general. So I'll be able to report more about that next month when I do the whole monthly wrap up of the books. And I'm pretty sure I'll be through the majority of these books as we get going. But once again, that's When Crack Was King by Donovan X. Ramsey. If you've read it, let me know what you thought of it. Let me know what you think of it. And hopefully I'll get around to it in the near future. And finally, the last book that we are reading or have read or is in the confines of what we're reading and working towards is a book that I wanted to read for Black History. It was alley-ooped to me by my boy Key Travis Squire, who told me, dog, you got to read this book. It's about one of the first Black people, or one of the most famous Black people, to really thrive at doing blackface. And he has a very interesting life. He has a very interesting ending, but it shows the history of his life, the history of blackface, him getting started in show business. And we are about 80 pages into a 300 plus page book. And I wanted to read this for Black History because it is Black History. Even though we're sitting here and talking about the bad thing of blackface and that being something that white people made or created or was created in order to dig into more stereotypes about Black people, to over exaggerate our features, to put soot and burnt corks and big red lipstick around their lips to make their lips look bigger, and over exaggerating a big wide nose, like those types of things, the talking and slang they brought into it for how Black people or Negroes spoke. This is a good history lesson. And not to say I'm not super versed in blackface and what it is, but it's a nice history lesson and a tutorial on where it grew from, where it thrived, entertainers that were in it, or how they tried to kind of sway what blackface is or how characters were portrayed and characterized. It's a real good book, and shout out to my boy Key Travis for putting me on. I need to speed through it because I've honestly, like I said, I've gotten caught up in a couple other books and my attention has gone elsewhere. But I like this book because it's talking about the two main characters. One of them is Burt Williams, and that's the main person that the book wants to talk about and highlight. But they also talk about his partner, and I'm blanking on his name right now, and I don't want to mess it up. But they're talking about them and going into show business and what that journey was like for them. So hopefully once we wrap up this month, I'll be able to talk about that book in full and tell you what I liked, what I didn't like, what kind of read it was for me. But I just wanted to give you the February wrap up, let you know what I was reading, I'll give you a couple books with a couple stars and a couple ratings. And outside of that, just check in with my book family. So once again, that is Uncle Drew stopping in for the February wrap up. And I hope to see you guys, or you guys will see me next month. So I look forward to seeing you. Stay healthy.